Mark, you're back for a third season with Treaty United and your first season as captain. I suppose. How happy are you to be back? And was it a long thought out process to decide to recommit?
Yeah, I suppose obviously delighted to be back, Jason. Didn't think when I signed 3 years ago that I'd be going into my third season with Treaty. I thought that was going to be the first season. I thought it was going to be my last. So great, delighted to be back for another season and hopefully, successful one. On decision, yeah, it took a while to kind of, I suppose, talk it through with Tommy, a few different options, and also with having a young family and work. It was just trying to make sure I got the balance right, but ultimately decided to stay with Treaty and delighted to be working with Tommy and the club for 2023.
It's interesting you were on about how you thought your first year might be your last. I remember I spoke to Enda Curran after the first night of the season in Wexford, and he said that when he finished up with Galway in 2020 that he thought that's me done with League of Ireland. I suppose, was there ever any thought that if it wasn't for Treaty popping up, do you think you might have called it a day at the end of 2020? I mean, you had achieved an awful lot.
Yeah, I suppose the way things ended with Galway, I actually thought that I would have played that season with them and kind of finished off at that point. And more than likely I would have kind of dropped down to junior, Jason. There was one or two clubs on to me at that once it was announced I wasn't signing with Galway, but it wouldn't have worked with traveling up and down where these clubs were training. So ultimately I probably would have gone down to junior football. So to be still playing 3 years later is great. I suppose I'm coming to my twilight of my career, and every game is just that bit more important to me because I know it's coming. Like the clock is ticking downwards. Not to say that I'm that old, but with everything going on in life, at some point, I will have to hang up the boots. And I remember when I was 18 and 19 playing, and I just thought, this was like I'm going to be playing forever. But now when you start getting close to the R word, which is retirement, it's just every performance, every minute you're on the pitch, you don't take for granted.
But the most important thing is that you're still here, Mark. And I suppose again you've taken the role of captain for 2023. Of course, you'd filled in as captain a lot in the last two seasons when Jack Lynch was absent, but you're the captain proper, I suppose, this year. What does it feel like to be captain going into the 2023 season?
Oh, I suppose, Jason, anytime you wear the armband for any club that you play for, it's a great honor, but I don't see me being captain as a huge thing for me. My I suppose point of view on this is that we need 11 captains, we need 16 captains. Anyone that's coming on the pitch. If you're communicating to your teammates, if you're going that extra mile for your teammates, that's leadership. That's what a captain does. And I think over the last two seasons, Jack's done really, really well as a young captain. But he also had help throughout the squad of different leaders across that team, and that's what we want to see. You don't want 1 point of failure or 2 points of failures with a vice captain. You want 11, 12, 13 people that are not scared to talk. When we do our team meetings and different things, we encourage the young lads to give their opinion on what they think about tactics, about players and different things. And nothing's going to change in 2023 if I'm wearing the armband or not. And I expect everyone else on that squad to be stepping up to the mark as well.
Speaking of the squad, Mark, you've 18 players signed up for the year, and while there's been vital re-signings like Willie Armstrong in the Curran amongst others, you've also got 3 good players coming in the form of Ryan Connolly, Conor Barry and Anto O'Donnell, 3 players you've played with in the past. How excited are you to see them join the fold for the new season?
Well, I suppose the Limerick fans know what Anto gives, and only for the injury last year he would have been signed and playing week in, week out, So it's great to see Anto back. We know exactly what he's about. He knows the culture. He knows how we do things. And like Ryan and CB, Conor Barry, CB is a nickname for all the fans. I suppose those two lads, when like Tom, like when I would have talked with Tommy about those two particular players, like they're good lads. And that's the one thing that you want in the club. You want good people coming in, people that are going to buy into the mindset of what we're trying to build and the culture that we built over the last 2 seasons, and not come in with an ego and different things. And look, Ryan and CB have immense amount of quality, and will add goals, assists, and also that little bit more experience, in key areas in the pitch, and that's really important. We're building a really strong squad. I'm delighted that we've kept most of them. Obviously, we've lost a few people due to immigration, and then losing Shawnee Gearns to work, and then obviously Jack and a few others moved on to different clubs, and that's completely fine. That's always going to happen in League of Ireland football, but it's all about trying to replace as many of those kind of key positions and people as possible. And I think Tommy has done a really good job in that. I think there's probably one or two more that we need to add just to kind of finish it off, Jason. But we're getting close to a really strong or competitive squad at least.
Mm-hmm. You talk about Tommy and signing players and kind of the culture within the squad, and I was just kind of looking back over your career, and you've worked under the likes of Tommy Dunn, Shane Keegan, John Caulfield, Alan Murphy. There's probably more I'm missing, but I suppose what makes Tommy Barrett different to the rest, I suppose it's kind of helped this kind of treaty process be a success thus far.
I suppose anyone that's dealt with Tommy, and you even saw with the number of interviews that Enda Kern did in 2022, especially kind of going up to the FAI Cup semi-final, like Tommy just knows how to deal with people and deals with them really, really well. His man management style is excellent, and he knows how to deal with different personas that you would have in a squad. But also he understands that there's football and there's also life, and it's about getting that balance right. But Tommy is a really, really good manager. And, if the thing is, over the last 2 or 3 years, if we had a bigger budget and we signed probably 3 or 4 other people that were actually on to Tommy over the last 2 seasons, we just couldn't afford them. I think we would have really, I suppose, battle at the top of the division. But look, I've only great things to say about Tommy. Tommy was a key decision factor in me coming back this year. If it wasn't Tommy at the helm, I don't know, would I be signing a treaty. So that's how much I respect the man. And in fairness, he has shown nothing but loyalty towards me and has helped me over the last 2 or 3 seasons.
I suppose just looking back over last year and the year before, it's last year was quite an incredible season. Maybe after a slow start, you still managed to pick up a good bit of steam and get to a promotion playoff final again. And of course, the FAI Cup semi-final as well. It was a great one-off occasion. I suppose it was only kind of in the build-up to the semi-final itself that I realised only 2 members of the squad had actually played in the semi-final before, and those were Dean George and Conor Wynn, both of whom didn't have good experiences. I suppose for you, Conor, again or Marc even, coming to the twilight of your career, was it nice, I suppose, day to Marc to be able to say you played in an FAI Cup semi-final?
I would prefer to win, to be honest, Jason. But yeah, I think that was a key message that was sent to the young lads, or that was spoken about to the young lads, especially the likes of myself and Shawnee Gearns, Jack Lynch. Even though Jack is quite young still. It was all about these moments don't come around that often. They really don't. And I'm 12 or 13 years playing, and that was my first time getting to a cup semi-final. Hopefully we get there again this year, but the chances, it's a really tough competition to get into, because people take that competition very, very seriously. And yeah, it put a nice I suppose end to the season in terms of getting there with the club being only 2 years in existence, and also the fact that we have such a low budget to become to even compete now. I watched back that game, and we had 1 or 2 chances, but we held on for dear life for a lot of that game, and not taking anything away from what we did, like just the golfing class and the golfing budgets were really apparent when you kind of watch it back, and just their movement was unbelievable. But it was still a really, really great occasion for the club and for the players to get to there. Would have loved to have got to Aviva, but I would not have probably enjoyed getting them in the Aviva, because it would have been a tricky afternoon for us.
100%. And look, we've looked at last year. We'll look ahead to next year. And you talk about golf and budget. I heard Tommy Barrett saying on the radio to Luke Liddy on Saturday that there would be no warm weather camp in Dubai like Waterford. But again, it's promises to be another competitive first division. Mark, you've got Galway and Waterford set to battle it out for the title. But you've also got the likes of Bray Wanderers and Wexford, who've been rejuvenated with new signings and new managerial appointments. And that's without mentioning Finn Harps under Dave Rogers. It certainly promises to be another competitive season.
Yeah, like I actually thought last year was probably the most competitive first division I've ever played in. But when I look at the squads and I look at the spread of different teams, I would imagine that 2023 will actually probably be the hardest first division that ever was. I think there's, the teams that you mentioned also, Longford, Cove have added really well. Athlone will always be there. Don't really know too much about Kerry, because they haven't announced too much, and Matt Keane's not telling us who he's signing. But they'll in their first season they'll be hungry to compete and do as well as they possibly can. So yeah, look, and we've known this from day one. Like players have left Treaty over the last 2 seasons, and they're not doubling their wages. We're talking 5, 6, 7 times their wages or what they get in other clubs. So we're at a different, I suppose, moment in the club's history, and we have to understand that, and we have punched way above our weight over the last 2 seasons, and we plan on doing the exact same thing again in 2023, and being, I suppose the motto of Treaty United is to outwork every team that comes to Markerfield or that we go to their place, and really be a team and stick together. And I think being a team outweighs, having a team or a club of really talented players that don't really stick together. And I think we have instilled a certain way and a mindset, and we want to keep progressing. I'm not signing back here to just play out my last season or whatever and just kind of finish off. I want to compete. I want to make the playoffs. I want to get as high as I possibly can in the league. It's going to be tough, but we've shown in glimpses over the last 2 seasons that we can compete with some, the full-time teams. We just need to, I suppose, find that consistency when we're playing those teams to get more results than we have over the last 2 seasons from them.
100%. And again, you kind of spoke about, the standard being so high. I think maybe, and it's probably to do with maybe how the view of the League of Ireland has changed in recent years. But I think if you go back maybe about 5 and 6 years ago, you saw the likes of Limerick and Waterford kind of walking pretty poor first divisions. Do you think that maybe was, again, the change of how the League of Ireland is viewed and maybe the rise in standard has kind of changed the viewpoint of the first division? I mean, before it was kind of always viewed as the graveyard, the Discover League of Ireland, and I think that mindset has kind of changed a bit. Would you agree with that?
No, I would 100% agree, Jason. I think when you look at probably the last 4 seasons across both divisions, I think that it has really stepped up. The quality of players in the Premier Division, is unbelievable. There's some really talented players that have left and gone into championship clubs and are playing week in, week out, or League One clubs, and making a really good career for themselves and earning a decent wage as well, which is great for them. And it just kind of highlights how the league is progressing. But the only problem is, and I know the PFAI have made some changes in terms of contracts and everything, which is great. I wish that was there kind of 10 or 12 years ago in terms of minimum wages. But it's a step in the right direction, Jason. And, to be seeing people, good players leave clubs for, 50 grand or 60 grand, and then, having a huge sell-on value for other clubs. It's just, it doesn't make sense. We need to be locking people into 2 or 3 years at least contracts. a bit like what Derry and Shamrock Rovers are doing currently. They're kind of all locking in for 2 or 3 years, which is great to see. That's going to take some time to funnel down, and for that to funnel down to first division, like there needs to be crowds, and for crowds there needs to be quality being played week in, week out. And I think that quality is improving every year.
Yeah, you mentioned crowds, and they've certainly been on the rise across League of Ireland, especially post COVID. There was a massive rise. Some clubs in particular, but I suppose the Markets Field, when it's been good, it's been brilliant. You look at the game against UCD in the FAI Cup, and to be honest, it mightn't have been the biggest crowd, but it was probably one of the best atmospheres I've seen at the Markets Field in a long time. I suppose, what's the message for, I suppose, the people who are going to the Markets Field every week, and people who are maybe kind of looking to dabble in League of Ireland football for the first time?
I think probably, well, the key message is please come and support. That's obviously the key message. Spend as much money as you can in the Markets Field for us. But it's more a case of like the players and the team have to be performing week in, week out to attract that. And it's the same in every club across the League of Ireland. If the performances aren't there, you're not going to see people come through the turnstiles. And it's more about results and performances. And you've seen this with the numbers and the jumps across different teams. They're typically the ones that have been performing well over the last 2 or 3 years. So look, we're going to do what we always do, and we're going to leave everything out on that pitch every single Friday or Saturday night that we're playing. And we've a good core base, probably 700, 800, 900 people. We'd love to get that to 12, 13, 14, 1500 and see can they attract more and more people by kind of word of mouth. But also the club have to do their bit. And that's not easy because, we're still only 2 years, we're going into our third year, but we need to be going out to schools and going out to different kind of in the community and trying to attract people into Markets Fields on a Friday night. But yeah, all I'd say is you're never going to be left disappointed in terms of effort coming to our games. Sometimes we're going to lose, sometimes we're winning. When we win, we do celebrate fairly well, which is great.
Looking at the start of the league season, actually, I suppose before we come to that, Mark, you're going to be playing Ringmahon Rangers in the quarterfinal of the Munster Senior Cup in a couple of weeks. I suppose it's kind of viewed as a bit of maybe a Mickey Mouse competition in some quarters, but it's still a trophy to be won, and it certainly would be a good piece of silverware to get your hands on.
Mm-hmm. Every competition that we'll be in, we'll be trying to win it. That's simple as that. There's no competition that's less important. So yeah, the Munster Senior Cup is the first cup that we have the options of trying to win it, and I think it's 3 or 4 games, and you're into the final, or 3 games that you're into the final.
Yeah,
not too sure exactly.
You're into the quarterfinal, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll that game's on the 29th, so we'll prepare really well. I think one thing when I look at kind of last year, a little bit of slow start probably came down to probably not having enough preseason games, and we signed kind of a few players a bit too late. Tommy's been very proactive, and I think he announced a few preseason games already, and definitely trying to get 3 or 4 more so that we can get that squad in, which we've pretty much signed everyone that we want to sign, bar maybe 2 or 3 more hopefully, and then we'll get in on Monday. We'll start pre-season and we'll get the games kind of coming thick and fast so we can gel as a team, which is really important for a quick start. Looking
ahead then to the league starting, you've Bray Wanderers on the opening night on the 17th of February, and you have 2 exciting away games after that. You've Galway United away, and then a first ever trip to play Kerry at Mount Hawk Park. It's it's certainly an exhilarating start to the year, and it's it's an opportunity to get a good start to the season, because Treaty's record against Bray has been good. Likewise Galway, and Kerry is obviously new territory, but it's a chance to lay down a marker against the new side.
Yeah, look, when you look at the fixtures and there's so many kind of tough games. Every game is going to be a tough game, but there's some really tough fixtures, kind of back to back to back. Look, we're going to take Bray first. We're going to look at their strengths and weaknesses, play our game, and see what kind of comes out of that, and then we move on to Galway, and then we move on to Kerry. So that's the way we've always worked it, Jason, and that's not going to change in 2023. So we'll take one game at a time. I know it's very cliche and boring, but we just want to focus on that game and then move on to the next game and let the results. We know what kind of performance we're going to put in and let the results kind of come out of that.
Yeah, 100%. And again, looking at the league table, even with the likes of Longford next year, it's got to be a grueling battle for the playoffs and even more so for the title. Would it be an aim to match last year's performance, go better in the league table? I know it is kind of a bit of a murderer's row for first division, but
where do we end up? Fifth? Was it fifth last year?
Fifth last year, yeah.
And the year before was fourth, wasn't it?
Fourth in a 10-team, yeah.
Yeah. Look, if we make the playoffs based on the budgets and having 3 full-time teams, you actually really have more. You have Galway, you have Waterford, you have Finn Harps are going to be full-time. I know that Finn Harps are keeping the same budget that they had in the Premier Division last year, so they'll be competitive. Bray are gone full-time with Ian Ryan. And then Wexford have thrown a load of money at that team. So, there's 5 already. That's without Longford, who were third in the division last year. So it's going to be tough, Jason. Like we could honestly finish 7th, or we could win the league. You never know. Yeah. But I mean, I suppose for our view on this is, we're going to take every game at a time, and that's fine. But ultimately, I'd want to make three years in a row of the playoffs, and then look, the playoffs are the gamble. Then after that, but we'll at least be involved with it, and hopefully this year we don't shoot, or next year we don't shoot ourselves in the first playoff game, because we seem to have done that the last 2 seasons.
There's probably been a bit of debate around the playoffs itself. I think some people have maybe wanted there to be a bit of a restructure with regard to maybe should it be 2-legged, for every round of it. Other people have also said that there's really no advantage to finishing second place in the league, as in, you finish second place in the league. The case of Waterford finished second to Cork City, and they still had to go through as many games as Treaty had they gone further. I recall a couple of years ago there was only 3 playoff spots, but 4 played third, and the winner that played second. Do you think that maybe you could do with a revamp to maybe favour the bigger teams? I know that might go against Treaty, but could it do with a rejig?
I think the playoffs, and especially when the leagues are so tight, it makes every game so important, and especially towards the end of the season, if there's 5 positions or 4 positions when you take out the first spot, there's 4 positions to play for, and everyone's kind of pushing hard for those positions, versus if you kind of take one spot out, or have it where we had it a few years back, where you have clubs that are just fizzling out towards the end of the season and there's nothing really to play for. Keep it as competitive as possible would be great. The only thing I would say then on I suppose the counter to that would be really second, bottom, and bottom in the Premier Division should be relegated, and first and second should be promoted. That honestly, that's the way it should really work. If I was doing it, but then that would shoot ourselves in the foot for the last 2 seasons. So I don't want to make that change just yet. But ultimately, the whole playoff situation, not that it's a bit of a joke, but it just makes it very, very hard for a team like Waterford, who came second, then had to come through us, and then came through Galway, and then lost out to UCD. Like, their performances, especially after their kind of the 10 or 11 games that they had, in my opinion, they were the best team in the league, and by a bit. Just the quality all over the place, and their patterns of play were unbelievable. But they still ended up in the same position as us back in the first division in 2023. So yeah, there's kind of two arguments to it. If I was kind of in one of the top teams, I'd say first and second should be going through automatically. And obviously with Treaty, it gives the likes of us, like the Cove, Athlone, Kerry, a chance to kind of get that 5th spot, and at least have a run at and roll the dice at the playoffs and see what we can do out of it.
100%. I just want to thank you, Mark. You've been very generous with your time this evening. The very best of luck with pre-season on Monday, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again very soon as the season prepares to kick off.
No issues, Jason. If Mick Shields is watching this, just take it easy on us for the first week, Mick, please.
Thanks, Mark.